Okay, hello everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm actually really amazed. So I expected that you guys are now on the beach, drinking cocktails and having fun, rather than being here at the last session, one of the last sessions, and to listen how I achieved 100% Google Lighthouse Score with Drupal. So before I dive into the real presentation, like I said, it's amazing that you're here. I really appreciate it. Thank you all for being here, and big applause for you guys. You are the heroes today. So just to show what I will cover in the presentation, this is a small website that I had to do for a company which is promoting products which are sold on-site, and we're going to focus on the homepage. You see it's kind of very simple, but even if it's simple, you can still mess it up. So I'm going to walk you through the steps that I did in order to achieve a very good result. Before I go further, how many of you have used Google Lighthouse and know what it is? Okay, so most of you, yeah. It's just a tool from Google that you can measure the site performance, and it's using lab data. This is important to know as well before you go out live. And this is on mobile, so my task, do you hear me well? You see well the presentation?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so you can just say you can interrupt me at any time and ask questions, so you don't wait until the end. So my requirement from the client, it was that we need to have a perfect score in Google Lighthouse, okay? Not, let's say, 100, but everything should be green and should be 90 plus points there. And this was my starting point. So I started from this. You see there, like almost everything is red, like orange, and like a Christmas tree. And like I said, this is on mobile. I'm a Drupal teamer at Jikawa, front-end developer. I don't work at Google. I'm not promoting the tool, Google Lighthouse, and I won't receive any money for doing this one, okay? And this is not a focus on the tool itself, it's just something that I use to do the testing, and like I said, it was a requirement by the client to achieve this score. And let's see what we're going to cover actually in the presentation. A bit of theory about what is a performance-first approach, how we should set up first our local environment in order not to test on production. We don't want to test on production directly, and we need to be as close as possible to production. How we can optimize our images and the largest contentful paint web core vital. How we can reduce the unused HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, not only CSS and JS, the HTML as well. A bit of fonts optimizations. Why I'm using the space, I can use this one. And how we can improve the interaction to next paint and the cumulative layout shifts. These are the other two core web vitals from Google. And before I move forward, PHP or right all along, this is said by Guillermo Rauch, the CEO of Vercel, on a Next.js Conf the previous year. And my point is that Drupal is fast out of the box. When you install a clean Drupal, you notice that it's really fast, at least from my perspective. And you see all like fancy frameworks, JavaScript frameworks, they started to implement server-side rendering, but server-side rendering is with PHP and Drupal a long time ago. It's already there. And we have it out of the box. And sometimes we say Drupal is slow. No, it's us the developers that we make it slow. Sometimes we do mistakes and it's working very slow. And these are the diagnostics that you see when you do the test, and on each like entry there is an explanation. You can expand and see some hints provided by Google that what you should do and what you can improve and how, and some links to some resources. Not all the time they are like relevant, but still it's useful to know this. And as you see, like I have a lot of like issues with largest contentful paint. This is the hero image. I'm not using HTTP2. There is a render blocking resources like JavaScript. So I'm going to walk you through optimizing each step, and on each step I will show a screenshot what were the improvements with the score. And if you guess, I will buy you a beer tonight at the bar, okay?
Sorry, say again, please.
Promised, okay, promised. Okay, so how many of you had to optimize a website like right before the production deployment, like only at the end? Yeah, it was hard, right? Someone easy? No? Yeah, it is very hard to optimize for performance at the end. Like everything is hard to be done at the end, right before going live, okay? So it's important to not just have these headaches with the performance, to start from day one, having in mind the performance with each task. It doesn't matter, it's not closely related, so everything matters. So that's why I think like mobile first, like in front-end development, there should be like performance first approach when you start developing. First, like I said, we need to configure our local environment in order not to test on production and like commit blindly something like fix on production, deploy it and see it's not working. First, we need to do our job and to be as close as possible to the production. This is really basic. Everyone knows the performance page. Like working with Drupal, we need to enable caching and enable the aggregation and, of CSS in JavaScript. So aggregation means that like Drupal bundles together all the CSS and JavaScript, like 1 or 2 files, and they're served for each page and they're cached by the browser and etc. So caching will depend on your caching strategy. This is just the regular Drupal cache. If you have varnish or if you export your pages statically, this value there in the caching will be different. I'm using Wandu for my local environment. This is a wrapper for Docker. And it's important to enable HTTP2. This is really crucial, except some Apache 2 like headers for the proper cache headers in the browser. HTTP2 is important because you can have multiple concurrent requests, like not like HTTP1, where I think you have just 6 requests, and this really improves the performance. But you should not rely on this one. You should have not that much resources, and they should not be big. Okay. Also, htaccess file should be updated with the proper caching of the static files like CSS, JavaScript, images, SVGs, and etc. This on production should be handled by your server provider, of course. And as you see, after the local configuration stuff, there is a like huge gain in the performance, but still there are a lot of issues, and you see these best practices, it's still not green, so we need to do first the image optimizations, which are like, you can gain a lot from them, but and it's at the same time it's really easy to optimize them. In Drupal, I use the Drupal responsive image module, and I use 2 techniques to tell Drupal to format my images. First one is the image art direction, which is sounds fancy, but it's just like telling the browser explicitly to load different kind of images, like sizes and orientations per breakpoint. Let's say on desktop you want to load a hero image, which is landscape, and on mobile you load a portrait image. And this is explicit, like I said, so you have full control of what the browser will load. Versus the resolution switching, if you just use image with source set attribute and you specify your different sources for your image, this just gives hints to the browser, and the browser will pick up the best one based on certain conditions. Like here, I use this 2x descriptor to tell the browser that for high pixel density screens, let's say on my Mac, to load a bigger image. Because it's more sharp if it's like bigger. Okay. And with images, sometimes the most hard thing to optimize is the LCP. What is the LCP? Is the largest contentful paint, or here in my situation is the hero image. So it should be loaded as soon as possible, so the user can see something on the screen. because otherwise, like you see just a blank screen, this is not a good user experience. And as you can see, I have a huge problem with the load delay. So on the left is the recommended breakdown from Google, what are like the percentages and the timings for each step of the AOCP breakdown. And in my case, the biggest issue is with the load delay. And it's because I didn't set the correct loading attribute of my image. So you do not have to lazy load the image above the fold, the hero image. So you need to set this to eager and the loading attribute to be eager, so it loads immediately and as soon as possible. Immediately is the best case scenario. So by default in Drupal, this is always lazy. On the responsive image formatter, the loading setting is lazy. So it's very easy to like leave it like it is and then have issues. Even on production, I experienced such kind of issues. And this is really easy to configure. And next thing is to convert the images to modern, better compression formats like WebP. And now in Drupal it's very easy because you have this out of the box on the image style effects. You can select a convert effect and select the WebP as a conversion. Pretty soon there will be a VIF as well, which is even better than WebP and provides better compression. There are issues now in Drupal core. The guys are working on it. Really, like stupid bug that I did because I formatted this image not like from Drupal, but I hardcoded it in the source code, and I forgot to add the width and the height of the image. This is really simple, but still gives you a huge warning in Lighthouse because the browser cannot determine actually the layout of the image that it should occupy. So always use width and height. If you use Drupal to configure your images, Drupal adds this for you, and you're safe. And last thing about the images, you can go further with the hero image to optimize the loading time. You can use the fetch priority attribute. It's called fetch priority API from Drupal. Sounds fancy, but it's just one attribute. And you can set, there are more fancy solutions like on tape modules for this one, but I want it to be simple, and it's a kind of naive approach just to check if the image is loading eagerly to set the fetch priority to high, but in my situation this worked and gives me the best results. And so what do you think that it will be the score after the, you need to guess. 90. 90 or 19? 90. Okay. Okay. 100 I heard, no? Okay, it's just 3 points, okay? So much effort just for 3 points. I was disappointed actually when I did this one. But still I didn't give up because I have a lot of errors, you see, with the layout shifts and some render blocking resources. So let's see how I fix that as well. And this concerns the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And yes, size matters, ladies, men. And in this situation, it had to be small, okay? Your page size needs to be small because the less you transfer on the wire, the faster it will be. And this can be achieved if you like write clean HTML and CSS in JavaScript. So for my HTML, like Drupal is using Twig, but the end result is HTML served to the browser. I use single directory components. You may have heard of it. It's a relatively new module. It was even then experimental when I was working on this project, but it really gives you like encapsulation. You have control over your HTML, your CSS and JavaScript, and this way, like having greater control, you produce less extra stuff that you don't need on the page. A good companion of the single directory components module is the no markup module. It's a contrib module, and it's a setting in the field display. It provides like strip the markup, the extra markup from this field, and it just gives you the values of the field, like no diffs from Drupal, which are sometimes crazy. You have a lot of diffs, and you don't know what to do with them, and you write some crazy CSS to go over it. And so this is the actually example, what is my end result of my HTML. And I have only one extra div on the picture tag, as you can see, But this is because Drupal needs to add somewhere the contextual links, if you know them, like the editing stuff, just for the admin. That's why it's there. So everything else, it's controlled by me explicitly. So I don't rely on any Drupal markup. And as you may saw, for the CSS, I'm using Tailwind CSS, not because it's like modern and because it does the job. Like utility classes are really easy to reuse, fast parsing by the browser, and at the end, like the amount of CSS is not that very big. You should be careful when you're working on big projects because sometimes the file tends to get very big, and you need to be careful what you're doing. I advise to skip and not use like arbitrary selectors like this, values, because if those are very specific for a component, this will go into the global Tailwind file, and you may have unused CSS then when you test with Lighthouse. Of course, sometimes Tailwind cannot do the job, and I need to create a separate. I have just few, 2 or 3 CSS, very small files where like Tailwind utility classes, they didn't manage to help me and to do the styling. And you may saw in the previous example, I'm using block element modifier for naming my classes. And again, this produces smaller CSS because like less classes in my CSS, so the file size is smaller, and it pretty much eliminates problems with specificity as well. And on top of the Drupal aggregation, I use CSS Nano to further compress and minify my CSS. And in general, try to keep it small and avoid the unused CSS. There is a lot from Drupal core that comes and you may not need this extra CSS. So first thing that you need to do with the CSS is remove this extra CSS from Drupal core, and not only from contrib modules as well. You can do this in your theme with libraries override in the info file. It's pretty easy, I guess. If someone is doing theming, they already done it a lot of times. And why it's important to do all this stuff, and it's why it's related with the hero image, because the more CSS we have, the more render blocking time there is by the browser, because CSS is render blocking. It will block the loading of the LCP element on the page. And the smaller the CSS is, the faster our hero image will load. So these are very closely related. So for JavaScript, Drupal already puts the JS before the closing body tag. This is done for you. If you, any case very specific, you may want to put this on the head. For other cases, it should be at the end of the HTML. Do not use jQuery. Drupal is trying to get going away from jQuery. Now there are a lot of issues and guys are working on it, if possible, of course. Use defer or async attributes when needed. If your JavaScript is not that very important immediately on the page, you can defer or async the JavaScript in order not to render block the page. This is useful for some, let's say, Google Tag Manager, etc. scripts. I think the modules that are doing this are already using the sync attributes when they are loading the JavaScript. And the last thing about JavaScript is that you should not just rely on the aggregation like with the CSS. I use Uglified.js to create this unreadable JavaScript which has this A, Y variable names and function names because the file size is smaller. And I use just one simple script to iterate over the files and call Uglified.js. Because by default, if you call Uglified.js, it outputs one single file or just outputs into in the standard output all the contents. So there are extra npm modules that you can use on top to do what I did, but I wanted to keep it simple and to have full control. That's why I used this approach. And small font optimization that you may do, because fonts are as well render blocking. They will block your hero image from loading because the browser needs to process the fonts. You can use a link with a preload value of the rel attribute in your head, in your HTML, and this will tell the browser to have a higher priority on the fonts. And the results after the improvements, you see, again, it's disappointing, just 1 point for all the work that I did so far. And this is because Google Lighthouse also sees like a large layout shift that you may have on the page, okay? And this is the last thing that I had to fix. And it's a problem with the layout shift and interaction to next paint, how you can measure this one. If you go to the performance tab in the Chrome Developer Tools, you click on the record button on the top left and then perform some kind of interaction. So I can click on my burger menu. I had some problems with the animations, a lot of box shadows added on some elements that they don't need to be there, and a problem with my fixed position of the header, which creates this jumping, sometimes you may see as a bug on the page. And you can go and track where is the problematic JavaScript. You see this is a long task recorded by the performance recording, and you can click there and see the stack trace and find the JavaScript which is problematic. And after this one, so yeah, this is not a Photoshop, okay? Yeah, thank you. Thanks to Drupal Bulgaria Association and also to our sponsors. And if we have time before the questions, I can just do one quick measurement with you, just for the sake of testing. Let's see if Google Lighthouse is in a mood. I may get 100, maybe no. Let's see. Okay, mobile. My plan was to take a bit less time, but sorry. Yeah.
That's okay.
Thank you.
We have some time for questions. Okay. Yeah, for 2-3 questions.
Do you have a recommendation of what should be the maximum size allowed for the editors to upload an image? And the same question for the dimensions. Do you have like a rule of thumb?
There is not a rule of thumb. Basically, first you have to have a limit on your server for the initial upload of the image, and this kind of will save you from then having problems on the front end. And then when you convert to WebP, most likely the file size won't be big. Everything which is like megabytes is so it should be most likely. If it's huge image, okay, it could be megabytes, but preferable is to be like kilobytes. And the width and the height is determined by your design. So you need to constrain. Sometimes designers, they don't care about large screens, but you need to constrain to a maximum, some kind of fixed, let's say 1920 or 2560. And you need to talk with your designers. But basically for each breakpoint, you need to set the width and height according to with the image styles, according to the design.
Thank you.
Thank you for your talk. It was helpful. I have a question about when you have a couple of different tracking pixels or a couple of GTM type of script, like say Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever pixel, and you don't have the opportunity to not place them because the client needs different tracking. What would be your recommendation to optimize them in order to achieve the scores?
Like I said, the easiest thing, they will always be in your way, okay? They always be like flagging that it's a render blocking resource or sometimes unused JavaScript. You need to use just async attribute or defer attribute on the script. There are some fancy techniques that you can use a service worker to remove this from the main loading of the page, but I think it's too much. If it's just 1 or 2 script tags, you can use an async. It improves, but it doesn't solve the issue completely. And for my last project, not this one, as well, we had requirements about the performance, and Quiet was very nice that we tested. We removed the Google Tag Manager and etc. We test, we see what is the result. Okay, we know this is something that we cannot control. And yeah, this is how we measure the real results. So you can just pursue your client this technique.
Other questions?
Is there any way to run that Lighthouse Analytics apart from the browser, like in pipelines or from command line from some Docker container, and make it maybe even automatic?
You can run not the Lighthouse, but this Page Insights, which is similar to by Google, which has pretty similar testing, but you can use it with a live site, and there is an API that you can call. It returns a JSON with all the information, and you can format it the way you want and display the score.
But also, if I may interfere,
Yeah.
I guess it doesn't make a lot of sense to have this type of tests as part of your CI pipeline, because you can only measure live sites. Okay, so you cannot say if the thing that you're trying to deploy makes things worse or better. You can only know that post factum.
Actually, if you're, let's say we have a site behind the shield, you can disable the shield and just do the testing and still get some from, let's say, dev environment or stage. Yeah.
Yeah. We have time for one more question.
Do you recommend using Drupal modules like image styles, responsive images, and so on? Do they add complexity to the building of the image system and optimizing for them? They also add markup and everything. So do you recommend to use that and to tune that, or you have some other solution?
For sure. I think it's a must using first responsive image module, and you need to configure like for each breakpoint an image style, and this is a must. So for a responsive website, this is for sure there. And like I said, you can use the no markup module to remove the extra no markup. So don't need to go. You can do it by hand overriding the templates, but it's still something that you need to maintain further. It's easier to use the no markup module. But yeah, everything from core, which is like kind of responsive images and image styles, totally needed.
Thank you, Mr. Dunchev.
Thank you.